So, welcome back to today's video. Today we move on with the tree series. As always, I'm gonna translate the whole thing, and as a whole, I'm gonna translate it word by word, and yeah. So we're gonna read through that, and let's just jump right in. So this is the Kiefer, the second part of this whole thing. I think it has like 11 parts or something, and today we're gonna read that. So first off, we're gonna read the kind of subtitle, the caption of it. Viele kennen die rote schuppige Rinde der heimischen Kiefer. Viele means many or a lot, but in this case rather many. Kennen, know, die, the, rote, red, feminine form, schuppige, schuppig. This derives from the word schuppe, which means, which means scale, flake. Basically, it's kind of like, in German it's used for when people have something like Schuppen im Haar, either for that, which is, I think it's called dandruff or something in English. This kind of not very nice looking thing, I don't know. And what was the other one? Like, for example, in, I think, Germany called Varan, for example, or chameleons or something like that. All these animals, or for example, even snakes, I think, they have these, you could say these things, which are called Schuppen. And yeah, I think you get what I mean. So basically, it's kind of round particles or something, I don't know. Schuppige Rinde. Rinde, also the synonym of that is Borke, which is more of the what's it called? Technical, the advanced version of saying it, but it's called Borke or Rinde. It's the same in English, I guess. Yeah, bovine or bovine, I don't know. Viele kennen die rote schuppige Rinde der heimischen Kiefer, the red, what was it? Schuppige, scaly, you could say. I hope that's correct. Rinde, so bark. Der heimischen Kiefer. Der, in general, it means the, as in the masculine form, but in this case, it's genitive form of the, genitive form of feminine, so of the. Heimischen, which means homegrown, basically, or what's it called? Not available in your home area, but like located there, basically, or originally stemming from there. Kiefer, we had that in the last episode, I think, where I explained that Kiefer can either mean, Kiefer in general is this tree, but it can also mean like pine trees. I don't know, there are different specifications or like across the different languages, but in general it either means this tree, or in terms of anatomy, it means basically the jaw. We have the upper jaw. Is it called in English upper jaw? I'm not sure, but in German you call it the basically upper jaw and the lower jaw or whatever. Unterkiefer means lower jaw, and Oberkiefer should mean upper jaw. Yeah, so I was correct. And yeah, it basically just describes the jaw area and is the same in English. So, but this is called Kiefer too. Die Kiefer, the, what's it called? Conifer, the pine. Yeah, pine. Pine is like across multiple Latin languages the kind of common thing. Like in Spanish, I think it's called pino or pino or something, and in French probably something similar too. So yeah, die Kiefer, die Pine. Die in Deutschland weit verbreitete gemeine Kiefer ist eine sehr robuste Baumart, die geringe Ansprüche an die Nährstoffversorgung stellt und Trockenheit und Hitze ebenso gut verträgt wie eisige Kälte. Die in Deutschland, the in Germany, weit verbreitete, widely. In English, this is an adverb, so you say li, but in German there is no such thing as an adverb. Maybe there are, you could say something some words that end on lich, like maybe, for example, hässlich, but this doesn't make a difference if you use it as an adverb or adjective, because this is not the adverb form of it, it's just the word, you know. But so this is just to say that in German there are no such things as, what's it called, suffixes for adverb forms or something like that. I don't know, but like I don't know about the grammatical, technical perspective of it, but I think, yeah, this just doesn't exist in German. So it's the same as an adjective and as an adverb. Die in Deutschland weit verbreitete gemeine Kiefer, the in Germany widely verbreitete, derives from the word breit, which means wide, or also maybe from the word breiten, which means to spread, to widen. Is it called widen? I'm not quite sure. But basically it derives from the word, yeah. In this case, you could say this also derives from breit, which means, of course, wide, as I explained. And verbreitete means spread out. So this is with, of course, the prefix ver, which in general means to, what's it called? Maybe not necessarily in general, but in a lot of cases it means to kind of make a mess out of something, like verstreuen means to spread something, but like in kind of a messy way. Or maybe this is rather a colloquial word, but verhunzen, for example, means to make something, ruin something, or verlassen. Maybe this is not so much in that direction, but it's also something rather negative, to leave, not necessarily negative, but verlassen in general, to, maybe slightly with a negative impact, but I don't know. I'm just saying that in a lot of cases, at least when you kind of put some, focus on it, like you want to express that something is kind of not going in the right direction, going in a kind of bad direction, you use the prefix ver, not in a technical way like we think of it, but it's just the way it is in German. But what I'm just saying is that verbreitet means that it is spread out, so it is kind of, if you can kind of understand what I mean, you will get that. I mean, it's ver means to kind of go in different directions, go in, what I was saying, kind of chaos, and verbreitet means to spread out, or to be spread out, basically, spread around, but in kind of a, maybe you could say, chaotic way. I mean, this is very, very subtle difference, if it's even the same for everyone, but I'm just trying to explain it. So yeah, verbreitet basically so means just spread out. So yeah, not everyone's gonna think that subtle like I do, so yeah, let's move on. Gemeine Kiefer. Gemein I also explained in the last episode. Gemein can either mean mean, so of course also with the prefix ge, and yeah, I won't zerlegen. I won't disassemble, decompose, break down that word too much, because there's not too much of a root to that it stems from, that is basically you can get a grip on. Gemein, so it can either mean mean or like evil, but in this case gemein means like common. Kiefer, in this case pine. Ist, is, eine, a, feminine form, sehr, very, robuste, robust, I think it's the same in English, or solid maybe. Baumart, baum, tree, art, in this case species, or species, no, that's American, so species. And, or type, kind, species. Die, which, or that. Geringe, feminine form by the way, geringe, so little. I used to confuse that a lot when I was younger, but gering is small or little. Ansprüche, which derives from the word sprechen. We also had that in some previous episode, but I don't remember which one. which derives from the word speak. Ansprüche, ansprechen, which means to talk to someone, address something. Not talk to someone, yeah, but you could say jemanden ansprechen, which means to talk to someone or speak to someone. But ansprechen means to kind of address a topic or talk about something. And Ansprüche means, in this case, means to claim something basically, but rather in this case, a claim or multiple claims. So that little or few claims at the Nährstoffversorgung. Nährstoff derives from the word nah. This is kind of a, what's it called? Broken, you could say. What do you call that? Broken something. I don't remember the word, but it's kind of a derivation of the word nahren or something. Maybe more nähren, but in general it derives from something like nähr, and nähren as a verb. Like the root is nähr. I don't know. This is not a word, but just for the root. And nähren is nourish. Nährstoff. Stoff means a what's it called? Material. Basically, material, fabric, substance, matter. Versorgung derives from the word sorgen, which means to kind of care for or to be worried for someone. Like, I'm worried for you would mean in German, ich sorge mich um dich, or ich bin besorgt. I'm worried. And Versorgung, this basically means in terms of caring for someone. So versorgen means to get someone or something what they need. So Versorgung should be care, supply. Yeah, supply is probably the most correct translation. And so Nährstoffversorgung means Nährstoff. You could say nourish, substance, but it just means, what's it called? I forgot the word. Nährstoff. Nutrient, yeah, the nutrient. And nutrient supply, you could say. Die geringe Ansprüche an die Nährstoffversorgung stellt that low or few claims, basically. Ansprüche, maybe not claims in this case, but you could say claims. Is there another word? Like what it needs, or needs maybe in this case. At the nutrient supply stellt, puts in this case. And Trockenheit. Trockenheit derives from the word trocken, which means dry. And Heit is also something like ness in English, like dryness, fitness, and words like these. Und Hitze and heat. Hitze, you could say, but it's not too similar to that. I mean, it derives from that, but just to say it derives from heizen. I mean, just as the words, you might not recognize it as that, but it's very similar to that in terms of the H and the Z, of course, but I'm just saying that it derives from that, but as a word, people who learn it might not recognize that derives from heizen. So, Hitze, heat, ebenso, the same as, eben in general means like just, like when something like just passed by. Eben, or when you say like in more colloquial terms, it's like eben, when you reply to someone you say same as that, like correct, I think so too, or this is why, eben. Warum, like for example, I'm trying to think of a sentence. I said something with warum, but it might not make sense. So, for example, I don't know, I can't think of a sentence right now. Let me think. Like, for example, when you have an argument about something, I'm just trying to think of something related to trees. Like, for example, we had in the last episode something with the, what's it called? Borkenkäfer. Just to kind of give an example of that. Borkenkäfer. Like, for example, in a sentence, like, just to give you a conversation, because it's mostly used in that. Ich denke, dass Borkenkäfer eine Ursache, just to give you some random sentence, für den, I don't know, Waldverlust, something like that, sind, and you say then eben. Or for example, yeah, it's exactly. Or when you say, ich denke, dass es, I can't think of sentences right now, sorry, but I think, like, I don't know. I think I like trees. You wouldn't say exactly, but I'm just trying to illustrate that it just means exactly, and you reply to sentences with eben, for example. I think that this and that, and then you say eben. But of course you don't need to reply with that every time, but yeah, I was just trying to illustrate that. So, and eben is also used when, like, in more standard German, when you say, for example, in terms of time, da eben gerade die Straße entlang gegangen war, ... blah blah blah. This is a subordinate clause, and then there comes the other clause, and then of course another dot as the last one, or something like that. I don't know. And just trying to illustrate that as he had just walked, so like a very short time ago, or in more colloquial German, not in terms of time, it can also be in, for example, let me think of a sentence. For example, in political terms, for example, how many times I'm going to say, for example, da es eben ein Problem ist, blah blah blah. And that means as it appears to be, basically, or is factually ein Problem, a problem, or as it's basically factually really a problem is, so as it is really a problem, or because it is indeed a problem. So, ebenso in this case means same as much, and eben also basically means same as. So when you say, let me think of another sentence. I think eben is maybe not so much used in terms of same as much, if then rather ebenso. For example, ebenso you say maybe when someone says, like, ich wünsche dir, I don't know, schöne Feiertage, and then you say ebenso, and that is just likewise, yeah. So, und Trockenheit, dryness, und Hitze, and heat, ebenso, same as much. So is basically same, so so in general means so, but in this case, like what? No, not necessarily likewise, but rather same as much. Gut, good, or well. Verträgt, derives from the word tragen, which means take, carry. And vertragen means to endure, to bear something. You could argue it also means to carry something away, maybe like kind of, you could say somewhere it shouldn't belong, because I explained earlier that fair has this kind of feeling of doing something wrongly, chaotically, whatever to it. So this could also be a meaning, but nobody uses it for that, but it's rather used as being able to take something. Wie eisige Kälte, like icy cold. Eis, eisige, this derives from the word Eis, which means ice. Kälte, cold. So, die in Deutschland weit verbreitete gemeine Kiefer ist eine sehr robuste Baumart, die geringe Ansprüche an die Nährstoffversorgung stellt und Trockenheit und Hitze ebenso gut verträgt wie eisige Kälte. By the way, the singular form of Ansprüche is Anspruch. So, the in Germany widely spread, you could say, common pine is a very robust tree species that very few claims at the nutrients supply, puts, and dryness as well as heat, same as much well or good, takes or bears or endures as same as much as or like icy cold. So icy cold. So the in Germany widely spread common pine is a very robust tree species that has very few, what's it called? Ansprüche haben. I'm just trying to I don't know. Ich habe Ansprüche an die Umgebung. Yeah, requirements rather. That has very low requirements in terms of the nutrient supply and dryness and heat, as well as icy cold, something like that. Überschwemmungen, in Klammern, just zum Beispiel entlang von Fließgewässern, you don't necessarily need to say in Klammern, but you could say it, setzen ihr hingegen zu. Überschwemmungen. This derives from the word über, which is the kind of, what's it called? Oh, and see, I need to put my laptop on electricity. I don't know how to call it in English. In German we say das Kabel einstecken. Plug in the cable, so plug in my laptop, something like that. Anyways, so Überschwemmungen, this derives from the word über, which means over. So this is kind of the comparative form of above, or yeah, you could say that it's comparative, but I think it's a known word anyways, because it's higher than than what's it called? Up. Yeah, rather up. So oben in German. Oben. Über, it's kind of not the same, it's similar, but yeah. We don't need to get too technical. Überschwemmungen, this derives from the word schwimmen, which means to swim. Überschwemmungen basically means to be over swum. I don't know what these past forms are in English, but I think you get what I mean, that it means a flooding, basically, so that, yeah, too much water gets in and everything gets flooded. Zum Beispiel, for in this case, in general it means to the, because it derives from the word zu dem, and is the abbreviated form. Beispiel means word by word at play, or next to play, but in this case, or game, next to game, it just says example. So, for example, entlang, which means at the way, basically. Lang means long, but entlang means at the length of something. Von, of, Fließgewässern. Fließ derives from the word fließen, which means to flow. Can also kind of mean, not necessarily flood, but yeah, rather flow, pass, run, stream. And Fließgewässern, this derives from the word Wasser, which means water. Fließgewässer, Gewässer, G is always not always, but very often a syllable which illustrates that it includes a large amount of something, or a like derivated forms of something. And Gewässer is kind of the broad term for saying everything that includes water. So rivers, seas, you could say, but rather Gewässer, rather flowing kind of waters like rivers and whatever is flowing. But yeah, in general it means seas, oceans, which is kind of the same. Not lake, but maybe lakes in this case, because it's not necessarily excluding not flooding water, or standing. In German we say standing waters, so that would be very much word by word translated, because in German it's stehende Gewässer, which means basically standing waters, which means basically like lakes, or in German Seen, which is the plural form of Seen, of See. And or ponds, Teiche, the plural form of Teich. And yeah, so Fließgewässern basically means that it's flooding, like basically rivers, you could say. Maybe also like from the German we say Gletscher, but there's also a river, glacier, rivers or something. I don't know if they're called rivers, but I don't know what all is included in Fließgewässern and flooding waters. But maybe let's Google it, by the way, while we're at it. So yeah, Bäche, which is the smaller form of rivers, which derives from the word Bach, which is also a German composer, I think, if he's German, maybe Austrian, but probably German. Music in the, 17th or 18th century. Flüsse, rivers. Ströme, which maybe is the bigger form of a river, which derives from the word Strom, which finally also has something to do with what I just did, because I plugged my laptop onto electricity, and electricity in German means Strom, because it's something that is flowing, so it basically means flow in English. And yeah, basically Fließgewässer, so floating waters, just means something like rivers in smaller or bigger forms. Setzen, Überschwemmungen, so floodings basically, I think it's called. I'm not completely mistaken. Floods. For example, at the length, or what's it called, entlang, around, you could also say. Along, rather along. For example, along flooding waters, like flowing waters. Yeah. Setzen, set, ihr, her, or in this case it. Hingegen, in contrary to, basically, zu. Hingegen, it contains the word gegen, which means basically anti or against. Hingegen means like in contrary to basically what was said before. So what was said before was that is very robust, and in this case it says that floods setzen ihr zu, said, her, in contrary was said before, zu, to. So zusetzen is also very, you could say, meaningful word, but not meaningful in terms of like meaningful, but like it has different meanings. So what's it called? Zusetzen. So zusetzen has add. It can be add in terms of adding ingredients to a recipe you're trying out, and adding ingredients to a bowl, for example. But in this case it just means affect, and it can also mean harass, because zusetzen in this case is rather negatively meant, like it is affected by something rather negatively. And you say has very variable, like very different meanings it can have. So floods, for example, in English you would only say along flowing waters, setzen ihr zu, affect. It's in contrary to what was said before, basically. So, yeah, I think you get the sentence. I don't think I need to translate that once again. Wie die Fichte kann sich auch die Kiefer negativ auf den Boden auswirken, da ihre Nadeln zur Bodenversauerung beitragen können. So, wie die Fichte, like the pine, I think it was. Maybe also pine. No, spruce. Okay, so like the spruce, wie die Fichte, can itself, or themselves, or whatever, sich is basically, yeah, it's containing, I think, the 3 forms of er, sie, es, so he, she, it. Er kann sich, sie kann sich, es kann sich. In English it's herself, himself, itself. So, like the spruce can itself, in this case you would say in English, sich auch, also, the Kiefer, so this is pine, negatively in English, auf, on, den Boden, the floor, accusative case, auswirken, this derives from word wirken, which means to work, to affect, have an effect basically, and auswirken means it can mean like to have an effect you don't expect or don't want, or be more effective on something than what you expect, und I don't know, something like that, because aus is basically over the border, outside of the border, basically, of something. Auswirken means to have an effect on it. Da ihre Nadeln, as, or because, ihre, in this case her, but in English you would say its, Nadeln, needles, Nadel means needle, zur Bodenversauerung beitragen können. To the Boden, which means earth, floor, soil it can also mean, but in this case it just means floor or earth. Versauerung, this is sauer means sour, and Versauerung means basically Sauerung. This is not really a word anyone uses, but Sauerung would mean to be or become sour, acidosis it's called in English apparently, and Versauerung is basically, Ver is also another, like what I explained earlier, that it's kind of negatively an effect you maybe didn't want. Versauerung basically means to become sour. Also, Versauerung is a word to a kind of, what's it called? Not so nice word to say that someone is, for example, when you have, I don't know, stereotypically someone like, I don't know, you could say messy person. In German there is also the word, I don't know if it exists in English, but messy, which means a person which keeps everything they get or collect, and when they kind of basically drown in all that they have, everything that they keep, when they're like apartment is full of their stuff and they can't even kind of breathe, you would basically, for example, say versauert dort, or for example when you're very very bored at work, you would say ich versauere auf meiner Arbeit. It's more a auf meine. It's more of a colloquial word, so not necessarily too commonly used in standard, like not standard, but like official German articles or something. But you'll come across them maybe a few times. Yeah, becoming miserable, maybe it's not the correct word, but or translation from Google, but yeah. So, Bodenversauerung, in this case it's rather the very direct translation, so becoming literally sour, so I think it's related to the pH value or something, pH Wert, which is something with the, like, if something is in German basisch oder sauer, and alkaline or acidic, and these kinds of things, which also is, I think, a thing with not nutrition, which with what's it called, food, yeah, like what you eat basically, where your bones or everything in your body gets, like, the nutrients gets extracted from your body when you eat too much acidic food, or yeah, something like this. And Bodenversauerung, and it basically just means, I think, that the pH is too high, or I think it's too high, or maybe too low, but probably too high, and probably but there is not growing too much, or yeah, generally that the earth or soil or whatever you want to call it is getting, like, not so, maybe not nutritionless, but the environment is not too positively influenced by that. So that's its needles to the floor getting sour, you could say, beitragen, which means to, you could either say, but this is not, but rather word by word translated, that this is not an actual word, but in general it would mean, word by word translated, by carry or at carry, but in this case it means to have an effect, or like to also affect it, side effect, or to have a part of an effect, so beitragen können, can. So like the spruce can itself, also the pine negatively on the floor have an effect, basically, as her or its needles to the floor getting sour, or earth or soil getting sour, or sour getting, beitragen, have an effect. What's the actual translation of contribute, yeah. Contribute can. And here we also have this subordinate clause sentence structure again, where the verb is at the end. So, like the spruce, also the pine, this was pine, can negatively impact the floor, as its needles can contribute to the, what's the actual translation of that? To the soil acidification. Alright. And the penultimate sentence. Auch Kiefernholz lässt sich vielseitig als Bau- und Industrieholz einsetzen. Also, Kiefernholz, Holz means wood, Kiefern means of the Kiefer, of the pine, I guess. Also, pine wood, lässt, derived from the word lassen. This is also, I think, this is what I was referring to earlier, irregular, but I think it's something called with German broken, not conjugation, something with that, I don't know. But like where the vocal, what is it called, vocal? In German it's called Vokal. Where the vocal is basically, or vowel, of course. The vowel is kind of broken so that it has the two dots on top, or it's not the same, so it's kind of irregular basically. So also pinewood lets itself, in this case, sich, here we have that again, itself, vielseitig, viel, many, much, a lot, seitig, like in terms of sides. So vielseitig means many-sided basically, but in this case, or as a word, it just means versatile, or variably. Maybe there are other words, I think. Varied, yeah, broad. I think you get what I mean. As Bau- und Industrieholz, so building and you could say industry wood, so in use for whatever, I think probably kind of like IKEA stuff and up to whatever uses wood. Einsetzen. Here we have put in basically. Einsetzen, in this case, it means to be used for, but in general, like word by word, it means in put. So, yeah, it is able to be used. Also, pine wood lets itself versatilely or something, or variably, as building and industry wood, I guess. We're just gonna look them up again. Not again, but industrial wood. And industrial wood be used. So also pine wood is able to be used as building and industrial wood. In den für die Fichte zu trockenen Regionen wurde in den vergangenen Jahren deshalb bevorzugt die Kiefer gepflanzt. So, in the, for the, in this case pine, because I'm always confused because we have in German the word pine, not the word pine, we have the word Pinie, which also could translate to pine because it's very similar, you know. And we have the word Kiefer, which also, of course, is the same as the jaw, but we have that. Then we have Fichte, which is kind of similar to fir and all these kinds of things. This is why I'm always confused. So, in den für die Fichte, den Regionen, this is plural. In the, for the, what was it, pine? No, this was spruce. Zu trockenen, to dry. Regionen, regions, wurde, was being. In the, vergangenen, this derives from the word gehen. And the past of gehen is ging, basically for ich ging, du gingst, sie, es ging, wir gingen, sie gingen, and yeah, but like it derives from gehen because the perfect form, this was the imperfect, do you say? No, in German it's called Präteritum. So the first past form and the second past form, or past tense, is perfect. So ich bin gegangen, of course. And there you say the gangen, so wurde in den vergangenen, in the, basically have been passed in the past years, or yeah, passed by years you could say, so in the past years. Fair, we also have these fair, but in this case maybe it's not to spread around because it's maybe not like gone wrong chaotically, whatever. I'm just trying to illustrate that, but in this case this of course doesn't make too much sense. Vergangen, you could argue maybe, but we're not going to go too deep on that. Vergangen basically means past, having passed by. Jahren, in den Jahren, plural form of years, of year, which means Jahr. Plural form of that is Jahre. In den Jahren, in wem. So dative form, in den Jahren. In wem? Yeah, in wem. In den, because I'm not necessarily confused, but you can be confused by that because in this case you ask in wem, but this is not with the wem, with the M, it's not the same as in wen. Of course, in wen is not correct in this case, but it's just kind of as wen and den is similar. It's kind of maybe confusing sometimes when you think of that and you think in den is, of course, accusative in the first, like when you first think of it, but when you think about it for 1 second more, you realize, no, it's dative, because it's in wem. Für die Fichte zu trockenen Regionen wurde in den vergangenen Jahren, in den vergangenen Jahren, in whom basically. Or in English in what. Vergangenen Jahren, years. Deshalb, because of that. Deshalb, this half, basically therefore. Bevorzugt, which means, there is the word vorziehen, and it means preferably. Vorziehen, not verziehen, which would mean, not verzeihen. This means verzeihen. Verziehen, which would basically mean to, warp, be a different form. Vorziehen, sorry. Prefer. Yeah, so preferably, bevorzugt, preferably, Vorzug. There's also the word Vorzug, der Vorzug, which means the advantage or the preparation. Or it could also mean the advance in terms of, for example, army stuff, where you also could say Vorzug in fremdes Land, which sounds very poetic. Yeah, not preference, but the advance basically. Bevorzugt, preferably, die Kiefer, the pine, gepflanzt, which derives from the word pflanzen, which means to plant something. This, of course, is the correct spelling. But also there's the word pflanzen with an uppercase P, which is a noun, which means plants. Pflanze is a plant. And in English it's all plant, or plants. So, for the spruce to dry regions was being in the last or past years, therefore preferably the pine planted. So for the spruce to dry regions was being planted in the last years, preferably the pine. And yeah, that was it for today. I hope you liked this video. I hope it helped you. Oh my god, I can't talk today. And leave a like, leave a comment if you want to, and see you in the next video. Bye!